In 1936, Albert Einstein came to the U.S. to teach at Princeton University. They asked him to teach the theory of relativity, and this is the visual aid he brought along to teach that class. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pieces in it. All 10 pieces are marked. And there's 63 squares in here. Count along with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 across. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 7 times 9 is 63. 63 squares contained within 10 pieces. I'll demonstrate the theory of relativity for you now. Let's dump the pieces out. And we have 10 pieces. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Now, the theory of relativity is E equals mc squared. E is energy, m is mass, and c is the speed of light squared. Now, no one knows what the speed of light squared is, so let's ignore that for a minute. One of you gentlemen just reach up there and turn off the speed of light squared for me. Would have energy equals mass. Mass can be converted to energy, or energy can be converted to mass. I will put some energy in and see if it will release a piece of mass. To keep the equation balanced, it must. So here goes the energy in, and sure enough, it has released a piece of mass because we have one piece out. With one piece out, we still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 across, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 up and down. 7 times 9 is 63, or 64, relatively speaking. Okay, let's do that again so you fully understand the theory of relativity. Remember, energy goes in, that releases mass. There's a second piece of mass out. Two pieces mass out, and what do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 across, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 up and down. 7 times 9 is 63, or 64, or 65, relatively speaking. Let's do that for you one more time so you can go home and explain the theory to your friends, relatives, and neighbors. You remember the energy goes in, that releases mass. There's the third piece. We've done it 3 times now. There's the third piece of mass out. Would you hold that piece of mass for me, lady? Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. We've got 3 pieces out, and we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 across, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 up and down. 7 times 9 is 63, or 64, or 65, or 66, relatively speaking. Any questions? Okay, I know what you're thinking. At this time, you're thinking, well, he's counting 63 squares, but this surely wouldn't fit back in the frame. Well, it wouldn't be much of a theory if the pieces wouldn't go back in the frame. It's a solid frame. It doesn't change size. You can let anyone hold it and inspect it. It's the same size now as it was at the beginning. Well, let's see what happens. See if the theory really is true. The theory of relativity absolutely is true, and we can prove it by putting pieces back in the frame and showing that we now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 across, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 up and down. 7 times 9 is 63, 64, 65, or 66, relatively speaking. Any questions? Now, the real beauty of this is, if I do this about 20 more times, I'll have a brand new visual aid. Okay, here's the explanation and some performance tips of the Winston Freer tile puzzle, or the Einstein visual aid, as I like to call it. Winston created this piece of equipment many years ago, and he was very ingenious about how he did it. There's a very simple secret to it, and we'll get to that in just a second. As the pieces are in here, they have 10 pieces, and we can count 7 and 9, which is 63. When you get ready to dump the pieces out, you want to make sure, since piece 2 has lines on the back of it and all the rest of them are blank, you want to hide the fact that that's double-sided. So when we dump the pieces out under cover of the dump, I like to use my fingers to kick a few pieces over. You hopefully will get a few pieces turned over, and they'll see this. And then I like to catch number 1 in my hand and use number 1 kind of to push pieces out of the way, and they can see that number 1 has so several pieces get turned over, and in their mind nothing's happened yet, so they're not suspicious, but it just makes it nice to get that piece turned over Winston used to turn his piece over during his presentation. But if you turn it over when you're dumping it out, you got the dirty work over with and done with, and you don't really have to worry about it. It's much better to turn it over then. Now the downside of turning it over now is that the pieces don't line up. You can't put two on there. You get this if you line, so you have to start like that. But I think that's a small thing to give up. And Juan Tamarez says, lead them down the garden path and yank the rug out from under him. And that's exactly what I'm hoping to do here by leaving it offset and letting them wonder, why doesn't he put that together? It will make them suspicious. And later we're going to yank that rug right out from under him and prove to them that it does. All the lines do line up. In stage 3 they do. That was stage 1. This is stage 2. So we're getting ready to, the code to make this, to release a piece is 2, 1, 2. You move the 2 pieces over here, 3 and 4, over here. That's our first move. And that will release 1 piece. So we take the 1 piece out. Remember, this has been turned over. And take the 1 piece out, and we can still count 7 across, and we can still count 9 up and down. Now, the next, it's 2, 1, 2 is the code to make this work. So the next time you rearrange parts, it goes, 1 part goes over here. So 5 gets picked up and turned over. That releases 1 more piece. So we now have 2 out. And then the last time we do it, we move 2 again. It's 2, 1, 2. That's the code to remember. So it's 2, 1, 2. Just like in instructions, and there's our 3rd piece out. So we still have 7 across. We can still count 9 up and down. Now the 3rd time they do line up. They do line up. You could slide it over here, but I kind of like to still keep them suspicious. Build that suspicion in their mind, because it's going to be strong when you yank it out from under it. All 3 times I've left this cockeyed. I don't line it up to where they can spot it. I kind of make it hard for them to see, do the things line up. That's on purpose. Now when we say it wouldn't be much of a theory, I know what you're thinking, these 3 pieces over here, and a lot of times I've handed this to someone, they're standing there holding them. I said, with her holding those 3 pieces, there's no way that we can fill the frame back up again. Well, it wouldn't be much of a theory if the pieces didn't fit back in the frame. You bring the frame back. Incidentally, Gary Morton of Ohio gave me a great idea. He said, let someone use the frame as a tray. That way they're holding it and know that it's solid, and you can pitch the pieces in there. Makes a good sound when you pitch pieces in. They're holding it. Each time you say, would you hold that piece of mass for me? And by the way, many people find that's funny when you say hold a piece of mass. I got lots of snickers and laughs out of that for years before I finally realized why they were snickering. So I kind of felt like, oh boy, I'm kind of slow that I didn't catch on to that. Here I was saying, hold a piece of mass for me. Here, hold this piece of mass for me. Would you hold this piece of mass for me? And they would snicker and laugh. And unintentionally, I found a good line. So thanks, Gary, for that idea. Now, when you get the tray back out and you say, well, it certainly wouldn't be much of a theory if the pieces didn't fit back in the frame. Obviously, they're going to fit now because piece 2's been turned over and it's bigger than it was. So they fills that space up that those pieces are missing. When you put it back in there at this point, and there's a little slop in the tray, so you want to kind of line them all up by pushing them off to one side. At this point, you really are burning their mind. They've got 3 pieces out, and you've got this thing filling the frame back up again the same size. You have really stunned them. They are totally stunned. So if you get total silence, don't worry about that. They're stunned. So now when you count 7 by 9 is 63 or 65 or 66, 63 or 64, 65 or 66, relatively speaking, and you say any questions, their mind's fried. They're going to either laugh or not say anything or not do anything. And the good tagline to make sure that this thing's done is just pick those up and say, if I do this 20 more times, I'll have a brand new puzzle, because actually you'd have 63 squares supposedly. So it's a good tagline to end the thing. Should take a bow and you're going to get a good round of applause. So that's how to do it. One more thing I want to add on here. What if you have to put these pieces back in with someone watching? Well, if they won't quit watching, you want to put these pieces back in here so you can do it again a little bit later for another crowd or something. One of the good ways to put this back in here while we're watching is just say, there's a very complicated formula to get these 3 pieces to go back in there. It's very complicated. It's very hard to remember. I'll do it for you, and maybe you'll catch on, but it is very, very difficult. Now, when you turn the pieces over again, once again, you want some of them to fall out. You want them to fall over and fall out. And hide the fact that number 2 is the only one that has lines on the back. So you push the pieces over, you pick the frame up, put 1 in, you put 2 in now, and of course 2 goes in this way this time. You want to make sure 2 is up. And now you pick it up, you say it's a very complicated formula. It goes like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I always say it's very complicated, very hard to remember. Maybe you'll get onto it after a while. 6, 7. Once again, at this point, you reiterate again. It's very hard. It's hard to remember, and it goes like this: 8, 9, and 10. You might get onto it after a while. And as you put those pieces back in there, now the 3 pieces are back in. They didn't notice you turned 2 over while you're doing it. Now you could actually go do the puzzle again sometime. The only problem with doing that is someone's watching for the second time. They may decide to take a peek around and look at the sides, and if they look at the sides of the thing, they can see that piece 1 and 2, while they're laying this way, have a gap there. Now they're like this when they're in one way, and they're laying like that when they're in the other way. So they may see that. So I don't like to do it twice, but you can possibly get by with it if you have to. Well, those are some secrets and tips on performing the Winston Freer tile puzzle. It's easy to do. All you have to do is remember move 2, move 1, move 2, 2, 1, 2. However, it may take you a while to build up your spiel and your presentation to the speed of this. I like to do it in a comical mode. You may want to do it in a serious mode, however your presentational style fits. Thank you for purchasing Winston Freer Tile Puzzle. I'm John Rogers. Visit me at woodencigars.com for new items all the time. Thank you.